Part 1. The Cold Introduction. The sterile scent of the hospital room felt like a blanket of amnesia. I, Elijah Vance, was drifting back into consciousness, my mind a blank slate, the 3-day coma having erased years of my life. My colleagues, bless their hearts, had visited, piecing together the accident. I had shoved the rising star Seraphina Sarah Thorne out of the path of a collapsing lighting rig on the set of a university TV drama, taking the hit myself. The accident site was my own campus, where I taught comparative literature. The irony was bitter, though I felt nothing but a dull confusion. 2 days after I woke up, the door swung open. A woman I didn't recognize entered. She was impeccably dressed, her black suit sharp, and her demeanor coolly professional. She carried a sleek smartphone. "Elijah," she said, her voice polite but distant. "Thank you. You left this at the scene." She placed my phone on the bedside table. "We will cover all medical expenses. For anything else, please contact my manager." She then slid a gleaming black credit card across the polished surface. A faint, almost relieved smile touched her lips. The smile of someone who had just resolved a very complicated, very bothersome contractual obligation. "Thank you, Elijah." I watched her turn to leave, a wave of cold panic washing over me. Her face, her scent, the faint shimmering glow of her presence. Something was screaming at the back of my lost mind. It wasn't recognition from a movie poster or a news clip. It was a deep, primal echo. "Wait a minute," I blurted out, my voice strained. A searing pain shot through my temples as I struggled to articulate the inexplicable feeling. Did we know each other before?" She froze, her hand on the doorknob. She didn't answer. Instead, the door was pushed open wider, and a man stepped in. He was a vision in white linen, sunglasses perched on his head. He walked straight to her, wrapping her in an easy, possessive hug, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. He was Reese Kalin, a famous actor, an absolute darling of the tabloids, and the male lead in the series being filmed at the university. He took off his shades, his expression a mix of gentle amusement and slight annoyance at the interruption. "Of course you know each other," Reese said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Elijah, this is Seraphina. Seraphina, the hero who saved your beautiful hide." Before I could process the forced familiarity, Seraphina gently nudged forward a third person who had been hovering by the door. This woman had a striking, high-fashion look, expensive clothes, an edgy haircut, and eyes that held a hint of melancholic intensity. Seraphina's smirk was subtle but unmistakable, a flash of predatory victory. "Elijah, this is your girlfriend, Vespera Beaumont. Vespera is also a dear friend of mine." I stared at Vespera, then back at Seraphina. Vespera Beaumont. A name I later learned was synonymous with old money, fast cars, and a handful of salacious high society rumors involving exclusive clubs and reckless abandon. The gap between her rumored persona and the man I imagined myself to be, an academic buried in dusty manuscripts, was vast and frankly unbelievable. My gaze snapped back to Vespera. You're my girlfriend?" Her dark eyes instantly misted over, a shimmer of genuine vulnerability that caught me off guard. She knelt gracefully beside the bed, her voice a soft, low murmur. "I can be," she whispered, her hand reaching out tentative, almost reverent, to touch mine. Seraphina gave a sigh of performative patience. "Elijah, what I mean is, if you don't remember me, it's really quite all right. We'll simply meet again." She then addressed Vespera with an oddly familiar yet dismissive tone. "Oh, you again, Vespera." The emotional pull I felt towards the elegant actress, Seraphina, was undeniable, far more potent than the vague stirrings Vespera's touch evoked. Yet, as I looked into Vespera's tear-filled eyes, something deep within the newly vacant chambers of my heart seemed to shift. There was a raw, aching sincerity in her gaze that spoke not of forgotten love, but of a present, desperate need. In the midst of my mental fog and Vespera's utterly convincing performance, I mistook this intense, indescribable inner resonance as a rekindling of a forgotten love. I decided to trust her. Time, however, did what memory could not. The woman the internet painted as a tempestuous, spoiled heiress was a person of endless patience. She attended to me in the hospital with a gentle, focused care that was baffling. The only time she showed an ounce of the infamous Beaumont temper was when a careless nurse failed to find my vein on the first try. Vespera, suddenly a commanding force, had the nurse removed and demanded a replacement. Contrary to the rumors of her reckless lifestyle, she was an astonishingly good cook, preparing every one of my hospital meals, ignoring the tasteless cafeteria fare. Each dish was simple, yet infused with an inexplicable flavor that tasted like care. Even now, months later, as we drove, she respected my unintended nap, steering the luxury sedan slowly and steadily. When I woke, a cashmere blanket, which she must have discreetly placed there, was draped over me. Outside, the setting sun was bleeding fiery orange and deep violet across the sky over the Portsmouth Heights neighborhood. Vespera was standing among a cluster of old oaks, deep in a phone conversation. Her silhouette was framed by the golden light, her hair a dark, beautiful mess in the evening breeze. Seeing me stir, she ended the call abruptly and returned to the car. Even though I had accepted her as my girlfriend, a residual intellectual distance remained. She reached the window, holding the blanket. I apologized, feeling oddly guilty. Sorry, I fell asleep. Did I delay anything for you? She opened the door, helped me out, and looked me squarely in the eye. Her voice was firm, almost a command, yet tender. Elijah, she said, remember this. You are always my priority. 15 minutes later, we exited an elevator and stood before a nondescript door. Vespera smoothly punched in the code, and the door clicked open. An immediate wave of familiarity and unfamiliarity washed over me. I walked in hesitantly and stopped at a minimalist white sideboard. On it, there was a framed photograph. It was a selfie of me and a blurred figure. The person was standing behind frosted glass. All I could discern was the outline of an adult woman. I remembered a colleague, peeling an orange by my hospital bed, his voice a low, gossipy drone. You always claimed you had a girlfriend, Elijah, but she never visited. Some of us joke she must be a celebrity. Turns out it's the Beaumont family's second daughter. I raised my hand, my fingers brushing the cool glass over the blurred figure. For the first time since my accident, I felt an undeniable tug. I spoke her name, the unfamiliar syllables feeling strangely right. Vesperum Part 2, The Echo of Loyalty. I saw Serafina Thorne again on a Wednesday evening, the day I returned to teaching. I was walking from the science lab building back to my office, the scent of antiseptic and old paper clinging to my coat. As I passed an empty lecture hall, I paused. Serafina and Reese Kalin were inside, sitting near a window, giving an exclusive interview to a prominent entertainment magazine. The setting sun, a cascade of molten gold, shone through the fluttering white curtains, haloing half of Serafina. She looked ethereal, her outline traced in soft, shimmering light, a perfect cinematic vision. There was a profound, unsettling detail I hadn't shared with Vespera. In the dead of night, I would often wake up, choked by a wave of inexplicable melancholy. It was a sadness so immense it felt like I had lost an irreplaceable piece of my soul. And in that restless liminal space between sleep and waking, it was always Serafina's face that appeared in my mind. Why Serafina? I would ask myself, incredulous. Why her? No one could explain this bizarre mental obsession, just as no one could explain the sharp, cold pang of despair that hit me as I watched her now, sitting close to Reese, their hands occasionally brushing, their smiles radiating an intimacy that felt both genuine and heartbreakingly sad. The reporter, leaning in to capture the moment, was trying to craft a fairy tale narrative. Serafina, describe Reese in one sentence. What is it that ties you two together after all these years? Serafina shifted her gaze, her eyes alight with a gentle, enduring fondness. Her voice, usually carefully modulated, was softer now, tinged with a genuine emotion I couldn't quite decipher. He is, she murmured, looking at Reese as if he were the only person in the universe, the light that broke through my darkest life. I considered her infamous backstory. The resilient girl, victim of an alcoholic and abusive father who found salvation in a kind, wealthy schoolmate. If the narrative was true, it made a terrible, twisted sense. Someone emerging from the dark would naturally gravitate toward the opposite, a source of safety and purity. The reporter, visibly thrilled by the soundbite, exclaimed, "Wow, what a beautiful sentiment!" He then turned to Reese. And Reese, comparing her to the devoted heroine in your current series, what is Serafina like? Reese, without a flicker of hesitation, reached out and squeezed her hand. Her loyalty, of course. Absolutely unparalleled loyalty. I stood quietly in the shadowy corridor, an unseen observer to their carefully curated happiness. Then, my phone buzzed. A sudden, violent intrusion that shattered the fragile, romantic atmosphere. It was Vespera. The spacious, echoing lecture hall froze. Several pairs of eyes, Serafina's, Reese's, the reporter's, snapped toward the sound. Clumsily, I fumbled to hang up. "I'm sorry," I stammered, gripping the phone tightly. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just passing through. I'll leave now." Reese, ever the professional, rose with an easy, charming smile. "Elijah, you're not interrupting. We were just wrapping up." He was composed, effortlessly diffusing the tension. The reporter, recognizing a collegial opportunity, remarked that since we knew each other, he'd gather his gear and head out. It was just the three of us. Reese walked up to me, his manner polite, almost overly courteous, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Given that you serendipitously helped Serafina," he inquired, the word serendipitously carrying a faint, calculated sarcasm, "surely there should be some compensation." "Elijah, name your price." Stunned, I glanced at Serafina, whose back was still to me, frozen in her chair. Then I looked back at Reese. "I appreciate the thought, but I sincerely wasn't after any compensation." Reese's tone remained gentle, but an unmistakable layer of warning, smooth as ice, settled over his words. "Teacher," he said, tapping a finger lightly on my shoulder, "remember your role, and do not harbor any inappropriate fantasies." In the weeks that followed, the interview aired. Serafina was instantly crowned the epitome of sincerity in the entertainment world. Her popularity and fan base soared, powered by the purity of her narrative. I began to actively avoid anything related to her, focusing instead on Vespera. Even though I couldn't recall the circumstances of our initial connection, I clung to the belief that choosing her had been a deliberate, conscious act. I wouldn't compound the tragedy of my amnesia by hurting her now. Despite the confusion, I tried. I wanted to genuinely reconnect and fall in love with Vespera anew. "What was I like with you before?" I asked her one evening. She was peeling a grapefruit, the bittersweet scent filling the air. She paused, her dark eyes locking onto mine. "Elijah," she said, her voice weighted with quiet conviction, "you don't need to be what you were. I like you just the way you are. Do what you want to do." In that moment, I realized the full depth of her acceptance. She didn't expect me to return the love of a forgotten past. She would simply love the man in front of her, regardless. A profound, peculiar sense of relief washed over me. I was grateful that it was her, the surprisingly gentle, steadfast Vespera, who was by my side. We started doing what any normal couple did, dinners out, art house movie dates, and long, aimless walks through the city. I sometimes attempted to prompt her with fragments of memory, but they always led to a blank wall. Then, 2 months after my amnesia, Vespera picked me up from the university. A colleague, Professor Chen, rushed up to me, clutching a beautifully wrapped box. "Elijah, the watch we ordered a year ago is here," he said excitedly. Seeing my confusion, he added, "It was from a friend's custom shop. Handmade, unique. You described your preferences to the designer and ordered it as a gift for your girlfriend. And here's the message card you left with it." The watch was exquisite, understated, elegant, a timepiece built for quiet contemplation, not flashing on a red carpet. Its style was utterly, glaringly mismatched with Vespera's $1,000,000 accessories. Vespera remained silent, her expression unreadable, until Professor Chen left. It wasn't until she slowly opened the message card that the crease in her brow smoothed out. I figured she, too, thought the watch didn't suit her. I glanced at the diamond-encrusted bracelet on her wrist and quietly said, "If you don't like it, that's fine. Maybe my description to the designer went wrong, or perhaps the style changed during the making." She chuckled softly, a low, slightly raspy sound. "I like it," she insisted, her gaze fierce. "I really like it. Anything you give me, I like." She immediately unfastened her own expensive watch and secured mine on her wrist, a quiet, permanent statement. Curiosity finally overcame me. I picked up the message card I had written a year ago. It was undoubtedly my handwriting, but on the pristine, heavy stock, there was only one solitary letter. Holding the card, I zoned out for a moment, listening to the high-pitched whoosh of the autumn wind outside. That day, Serafina and Reese wrapped filming of their campus drama. During a break, a live stream captured them. Someone in the chat asked Serafina why she was so devoted to Reese. In the video, she paused, her eyes drifting away as if recalling a distant memory. Then she looked back at Reese, her expression tender. "His goodness is something I've never encountered before," she said. Considering her life, I understood the sentiment. A life in the dark meets its opposite. Attraction is inevitable. Following her answer, the chat feed exploded. Another fan's comment scrolled across the bottom of the screen. "All these years, have you really never had feelings for anyone else? Just Reese?" Serafina went quiet for a few seconds. The loving smile on her lips faded just slightly. No one knew if she was solidifying her conviction or wrestling with a shadow of doubt. Then she looked straight at the camera, her voice confident and clear. "No." The chat erupted in a frenzy of heart and rose emojis. It hit me. I hadn't thought of her in days. Even seeing her now, I felt nothing. The hollow, sleepless ache in my heart had vanished. I couldn't explain the realization, but it made me feel lighter, happier. I walked out into the light drizzle, my step buoyant, to find Vespera's car waiting quietly under a dim streetlight. It was 9:00 p.m. I had texted her over 3 hours ago, telling her not to wait for my meeting to end. Raindrops slid down the window, mimicking the sudden, heavy thud in my chest. I got in, surprised. "It's so late, I told you not to wait for me." She gently wiped my face with a towel, her dark eyes solemn. "But I wanted to see you." The cramped, damp car was suddenly charged with an indescribable atmosphere. I looked at her sharp, beautiful features, my heart beginning a slow, steady, unfamiliar race. I realized that if nothing catastrophic happened, Vespera was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. Even without the past, I was falling in love with her all over again. But half a month later, the catastrophic did happen. Part 3, The Shattered Mirror. It was a stunningly radiant evening. Vespera Beaumont and I had just finished dinner at a small, intimate Italian restaurant. We were walking down a bustling street in the Arcadia district, intending to stop at a nearby florist to pick up some lilies. Vespera insisted they brightened my study better than roses. Suddenly, the world exploded. A massive billboard advertising a new luxury ring collection featuring Serafina Thorne and Reese Kalin crashed down from its perch. The headline, emblazoned across the image of their entwined hands, screamed, "Eternal love, a promise made in the spotlight." Instinctively, I shoved Vesper hard to the side, narrowly avoiding the twisted metal and glass. The deafening crash, the chaotic screams, the blare of car horns, and the immediate sharp whine of approaching sirens. The familiar cacophony instantly sliced through the protective shield of my amnesia. A floodgate burst. The piercing siren was like a knife, unexpectedly cutting open the memories I had buried. Fragments of images, long lost, violently stitched themselves back together in my mind. Serafina and I, 18 years of friendship, 4 years as a couple. When we met, she was a frail girl without a mother, routinely abused by her father in the remote, forgotten village of Blackwood Creek. I was a boy, Elijah still, who had been kidnapped and sold there years earlier. I saved her first, offering her water in a lotus leaf when she collapsed from a beating under the scorching summer sun. She protected me in turn, shielding me with a jagged rock when the village bullies harassed me. In those dark days, every word she taught me, every story she shared from the books she managed to get hold of, was a star carrying my desperate wish. I read a handwritten line in one of those tattered books. "As long as you never give up, you will see hope." Hope took root. I told her, "We can't stay here. We must escape." She was allowed to leave. I was not. After another near-fatal beating by her drunken father, we fled. I was 13 in my 5th year in that desolate place. We struggled, but social aid eventually gave us a chance to study. I was far behind. When Serafina was in high school, I was still catching up in middle school. It was during this time that Serafina met Reese Kalin. I only heard his name, never saw his face until Serafina's high school graduation party. I was waiting for her outside the upscale Imperial Grand Hotel with a coat. Afterwards, as I carefully helped a drunken, stumbling Serafina, someone nearby shouted, "Reese!" Her body stiffened slightly in my arms. I glanced towards the voice, seeing only a fleeting, slender silhouette disappearing into the crowd. Later, back in our tiny shared apartment, Serafina mumbled into my shoulder, half asleep, "How can someone stuck in the mud, like me, ever reach the moon?" I thought she meant her academic dreams. I threw myself into studying, into working 3 jobs to save money. I became her silent, obsessive advocate, analyzing every character she auditioned for, creating countless anonymous fan accounts to cheer her on. I protected her dreams. I didn't realize her moon was Reese. Back then, she was mired in the mud, and the moon was out of reach. Later, she was shining, and the moon Reese came to her. Her breakthrough movie after winning Best Actress was with Reese. They played star-crossed first loves. Reese's character died the year Serafina's character loved him most. His limited screen time, the tragic ending, the depth of the supposed love, it brought him immense early attention. After that, nearly every major project involved them co-starring, until this university drama. So it all made perfect, sickening sense. The time she claimed she couldn't join me at the ancient temple in South City, she was at that hotel with Reese. When I was injured and lost my memory, she seized the chance to sever the tie and erase me entirely. Vespera's voice, worried and insistent, pulled me back from the precipice of memory. "Elijah? Elijah? Are you with me?" She drove fast, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, and finally stopped outside the St. Jude's emergency room. Still worried, she helped me out of the car, insistent that I needed a CT scan immediately. I let her take my hand, following her dazedly. Her hands were scraped and raw from the pavement. Her silk blouse was dirt-stained from covering me. Her elegant hair, usually pinned in place, was messy, tossed by the evening wind. She looked utterly unlike the woman I first encountered 6 months ago. I remembered the night we met at a colleague's chaotic birthday party. I had been harassed by a drunken man and stumbled into their private booth. The dim, flashing lights illuminated a room full of beautiful, untouchable people. But it was Vespera, casually swirling a glass of amber liquid on a velvet sofa, who instantly stole my attention, outshining even Serafina, sitting composedly beside her. When the drunken man cornered me, claiming I had harassed his girlfriend, Serafina had turned her head away, deliberately avoiding my pleading look. Everyone else just watched the drama. Only Vespera had moved. She put down her glass and walked over. Her quiet authority made the drunken aggressor pause. "Did you bother his girlfriend?" Vespera had asked me. I shook my head, my voice desperate. "No! I don't even know him!" Vespera smiled at me then, a sudden, reassuring, stunning smile. "Don't be scared. You look good, I believe you." Before anyone could react, she grabbed the drunk man's wrist, forced him to let go of me, and without a moment's hesitation, smashed the bottle over his head. The loud, shocking thwack silenced the entire booth. She sent me home without a word. I didn't remember to thank her. I thought it was a random act of heroism until I passed that half-open door of the booth later. I heard someone ask, "Vespera, why did you help that guy earlier?" After a long pause and a low voice marked with an odd mixture of sympathy and affection, she had said words that now echoed in my fully restored mind. I saw his shadow in those eyes. The memory cut off, sharp and final. I stopped dead in my tracks, gripping her hand tightly. The noise of the hospital triage buzzed around us. Vespera looked back, her eyes soft with concern. "What's wrong, Elijah?" "We need to see a doctor." Avoiding her gaze, I focused on her wrist, on the custom-made watch I'd given her, the one she swore she loved. My voice was strange, forced, a catch in the throat. "I'm fine, no need for a doctor." I looked at her, into her wide, expectant eyes. The last 4 years, the beautiful facade she had built for us, crumbled in the instant that the past reasserted itself. I could not, would not, lie to her or myself anymore. "Also, Vespera," I continued, the words cold and final, "take off that watch. It wasn't meant for you. It stood for Serafina." I pulled my hand free and walked toward the street. I hailed the first passing taxi, opened the door, and got in. I watched her figure, the brave, kind, deceptive woman who saved me and misled me, fade in the rearview mirror. As the taxi pulled away, I pulled out my phone. I searched for Serafina Thorne. I scrolled past the professional photos, past the news of the billboard accident, until I found what I was looking for, a recent trending video. It was a scene they had recreated for a romantic reality show. Flowers, a sunset, a hot air balloon, endless romance and affection. The cold wind, rushing in through the window, dried the wetness I hadn't realized was on my face. I remembered the night Serafina asked me to be together. Junior year of college. A girl had driven me back to my apartment, suddenly confessing her feelings for me at my doorstep. Stunned, I hadn't known what to say. Then Serafina returned. Standing in front of me, she had told the other girl, coldly, "He already has a girlfriend." I stood there, shocked. After the girl apologized and quickly left, I whispered to Serafina, "What did you just say?" She held my hand, her grip surprisingly firm, and didn't let go. "Elijah, let's be together." I had liked her, yes. From the age of 8 and when I was abducted to the remote village, the trauma and fever had erased everything before that day. I had no family, no history. I saved the unconscious Serafina and felt an inexplicable urge to follow her. Years of dependent survival followed. Ending up with her seemed the most natural, safest path. To cooperate, I never spoke of our relationship publicly. I only expressed my deep feeling with a small L on a handwritten note. Shortly after, she got a break in the entertainment industry. She rose ever higher, growing ever more distant. Looking back, if Reese hadn't left, or if that girl hadn't confessed, Serafina would never have proposed. She never even said she liked me. Closing the search page, I paid the driver, stepped out, and tossed the custom-made watch into a roadside trash can. If she wanted to erase us, I would let it go. If not for that kidnapping incident, we would have been people from two entirely different worlds with no connection at all. Just like now. And in the future, I had no intention of clinging to Serafina. She was not worth any more of my energy. Yet, just a day after my memory returned, her relationship with Reese trended on the news again. The story, they were exploring the mountains for a couple's reality show and got caught in a severe storm and landslide. Due to negligence by the crew, everyone was injured. Serafina was the worst off. She was at the back of the group, helping Reese, whose foot was trapped in a low area, when the danger came. She told Reese to climb to higher ground. Terrified of the collapsing rocks and trees, Reese didn't turn back to help her. He ran off. A chaotic, blurry video surfaced. Opinions fractured. Some defended Reese, saying it was a crisis, everyone for themselves. Others questioned his character. Why wasn't he injured? How did he deserve her devotion? Reese was silent. Serafina survived, but she was in a coma, her lower leg severely damaged, possibly lost. A colleague reading the news on their phone shook his head. Are they cursed or something? Last time you saved them? Now it's worse. Trouble just seems to follow them. I turned off my screen, the news already irrelevant. I smiled. Maybe. I hadn't told anyone, not even Vespera, before I left her, that my memory had returned. No one knew about our separation. My life continued at its regular academic pace. Sometimes, before class, I would habitually glance at the empty seat by the window. That was where Vespera used to sneak in, wearing a massive black hoodie, sitting quietly in the back of the lecture hall, listening to my lessons. In a class of 100 students, her presence was always obvious to me. She'd sketch-focused, filling sheets of white paper with my image. Almond-shaped eyes, arched brows, even the small mole on my left brow. Her drawing skill was unnerving. Once, before class, lost in thought, I looked over to that empty seat again. A student in the front asked, "Waiting for someone, Professor?" I gripped my book a little tighter, offering a gentle smile down at them. No, not waiting for anyone. No one's coming. Part 4. The Gilded Cage and the Truth. After class ended, I stood by the podium as usual, letting the last students file out. Minutes later, as I gathered my books, a sudden breeze whipped in through the open window, catching a stray piece of paper. It lifted the sheet and dropped it near the doorway. Sunlight, streaming low into the empty room, illuminated the paper. My heart skipped a beat. It was a sketch. Every precise stroke, every captured expression was unmistakable. It was me, drawn with an aching fidelity that transcended mere likeness. I stood there for a long time, the paper in my hand. Deep down, I had to admit the truth. My feelings for Serafina Thorne had completely dissolved during my amnesia, becoming a distant, painful echo. But my feelings for Vespera Beaumont had ironically grown during that same period. I loved the Vespera who patiently nursed me, who cooked for me, who treated me as her number one priority. But I knew she didn't genuinely love me. She loved a ghost, a lost boy she was searching for. And she had deceived me. That's why after my memory returned, I had avoided meeting her. One night, a rich coworker threw a lavish pre-wedding bachelor party at a downtown hotel. I stepped out of the lively suite, needing air, and leaned against the glass railing, texting Professor Chen about a new curriculum. Across the building, in a rapidly ascending glass elevator, I unexpectedly saw Vespera. She was wearing an all-black gown, carrying a luxury clutch, surrounded by a group of people I recognized as influential figures in finance. Our eyes met through the glass. Hers were bright dark and momentarily startled. The elevator stopped. Someone nudged her shoulder, prompting her to step out. I turned away, heading back to the suite. Someone handed me a chilled grapefruit juice, asking if I was joining the next round of betting. I politely declined, sinking into a dark corner, watching the flashing lights. I thought back to the hospital, my meeting with Vesper, right after my amnesia. The evidence she presented for us being a couple was full of holes. Any rational thought would have revealed the inconsistencies, but fresh out of a memory loss, desperate for security, I'd convinced myself of its truth. Serafina hadn't cared about the danger her decision left me in. Looking back now, I was thankful the person who stepped in as my girlfriend was Vespera. After the party, I lingered alone in the now silent suite, finishing the last sip of my drink before leaving. She was there, Vespera. She leaned casually against the wall outside the door, hands behind her back, as if waiting for the door to open. A faint, expensive scent of alcohol hung in the air. I paused before her. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," she answered, her honesty almost brutal. I replied awkwardly, "Vespera, there's nothing between us now." "What if I say, I really do like you?" she asked, her voice dropping. I had once fantasized about how similar I might be to that lost boy who made her wait and hope. But she saved me once and deceived me once. The two canceled each other out. She began, "Elijah, actually, I cut her off. "Do you need me to spell it out, Vespera?" "I don't want any relationship with you, past, present, or future." From my experience with Serafina, I'd learned that a fundamentally flawed relationship shouldn't even start. Her face, perhaps due to the dim hallway lighting, seemed to blanch. After a painful silence, she asked, her voice barely a whisper, "Can't we at least be friends?" Meeting her eyes, I forced myself to be cruel, to secure my freedom. "I don't need you as a friend." I had thought that after saying my piece, I would feel peace. I did not. Each sleepless night replayed the image of her pale, hurt face. The brief time we spent together resurfaced vividly in my mind. Her patience, her quiet devotion, the way she looked at me like I was a miracle. The bad part? She kept reaching out, wanting to see me, constantly finding ways to be around me. Over time, I became incredibly sensitive to her figure, her name, and her unique, light floral scent. Even when I saw someone who remotely resembled her, I would subconsciously avoid them. I knew I wasn't really avoiding her. I was avoiding the feelings she stirred in me. Today, the news was about Vesper ascending to the head of the Beaumont conglomerate. I was grocery shopping. Financial and entertainment media were all over the place. She had lost her mother young. Her father had remarried. Her stepmother brought a son who became her half-brother. Vespera was suppressed, disliked, forced to hide her talent and ambition, just waiting for the right moment to seize power. The news outlets were surprised to find out she had been doing charity work for years, donating substantial funds to remote orphanages in rural areas every year. Standing between shelves stacked with juice, I looked up at the large screen above the aisle. A clip showed countless reporters thrusting microphones at Vespera. In the video, she was not the carefree heiress of the tabloids, nor the gentle figure I remembered. She was distant, looking down on them, exuding a quiet, commanding presence. A reporter intentionally asked why this position was hers and not one of her excellent, overseas-educated brothers. Vespera glanced down at them and smiled faintly, a chilling, superior curve of her lips. "Don't you understand the principle? Only the strong rise to power." I suddenly recalled the scene where she saved me from the drunk man by smashing a bottle over his head. Maybe that was the real her, gentle yet fierce, detached yet wild. A gossipy reporter then asked if it was true that she was still looking for a boy, if he was the love of her life. The scene went silent for a moment. Vespera looked directly at the camera. Softly, she said, "Yes." I calmly turned back to my shopping. Only when checking out did I realize I had picked the wrong flavor of juice. After that, Vespera continued to appear around me, even though she never brought up being together again. Everything she did told me she hadn't given up. My car broke down in a pouring rain. She was the first one there. I twisted my ankle hiking. There she was, getting her assistant to carry me down. Until one time, I was recuperating at home from the flu I caught at school. She knocked on my door. I still hadn't fully recovered, and what was left of my rationality told me to keep my distance. I tried to close the door. "Stay away, you might get infected." She stopped the door with her foot, squeezed her way in, shut it, and looked at me. "I'm not afraid." My medicated mind was too foggy to argue, so I simply lay on the sofa and let her. When I was with Serafina, she hardly had time for me when I was sick. I mostly went to the hospital, took medicine, and recovered on my own. I wasn't sad. She was busy, and I understood. I managed fine without her care. But now, as I dazedly watched Vesper attending to me, switching between giving me water and meticulously cooking porridge, I was overcome with curiosity. "Vesper, aren't you busy?" I asked. She had just taken over a massive company. She'd have more than her share of things to handle. At my place, she was just wasting time. Kneeling next to the sofa, she softly wiped my face with a damp towel. Her breath brushed my cheek so close I could hardly avoid it. It took a while before I heard her answer. "Elijah, I remember I told you, nothing is more important than you. Perhaps being sick made me more sensitive, but my heart swelled with emotion. Being alone while sick before never felt this tough." I shut my eyes and stayed silent, comforted by the quiet rustle of her movements. I wasn't sure how long passed before night fell. I opened my eyes to see Vesper in the kitchen, reading instructions on medicine boxes. Orange sunset rays streamed through the glass, touching her. I got up from the sofa, leaned against the kitchen door, watching her, and softly asked, "Vespera, did you find that boy?" She visibly froze for a moment, set down the medicine, and slowly turned to me. "I did." My throat was sore. I wanted to ask why she was still bothering me, but I held on to a little dignity. "Are you two not together?" She stepped closer, sighed. "He said he didn't want to be with me. Didn't want any relationship at all. Was she using me as a stand-in? Borrowing a moment of her lost love for herself?" My heart trembled, and I lowered my head, not wanting to meet her gaze. Finally, I gave in. "Vesper, can you stop this? I admit I like you, but I can't abandon my principles to be a substitute. Why do you keep pressing on?" Her breath became heavy. She repeated word by word, "You like me?" With my head still down, she suddenly hugged me tightly. Though my foggy mind worsened with the rush of emotion, I heard her say, "Elijah, you're the one who said you didn't want any relationship with me?" The tightness in my heart snapped. Something surfaced in my mind, a memory fragment that was not Serafina, not the village, but something older, deeper. I finally met her gaze. Her head was pressed against my chest, her voice low and muffled. "Yeah, it was you. Part 5. The longest journey, 18 long years. Way too long." I had been 8 years old when I was hit by a severe high fever, an event that had erased everything prior to the moment I woke up in Blackwood Creek. I never knew my parents or relatives. Even after years of searching yielded nothing, I never imagined Vespera Beaumont was linked to me before the kidnapping. Vespera confirmed it the next day. "You were only 3 when your parents died in a chemical explosion. My mother's best friend raised you. We were together for 5 years, until you were 8. She explained that her father, using the excuse of taking me to see her at a relative's, had met with his mistress, his first love, and somehow, through unforgivable negligence, he had lost me. For the next 8 years, Vespera had searched for me relentlessly, but those lost memories were truly gone." "How can I be sure?" I asked her. "I have no family records. What if you found the wrong person?" In response, she handed me an old photo album. It was filled with pictures of me and her from when I was 3 until I was 8. In every single photo, the boy had a small mole visible between his eyebrows. After I turned 8, every photo of Vespera had a hand-drawn boy next to her, the boy she imagined me becoming for 8 long years. She must have noticed my silence, worried it brought up painful memories. She spoke in a light-hearted, self-deprecating tone. I imagined what you'd look like every year, but imagination never compares to the real thing. I held the album quietly. Is it just this mole? I asked, needing absolute confirmation. Vespera paused, then took out our last photo together, a faded picture of 2 children grinning on a porch. She flipped it to the back. Scribbled there were the words, "Forever Together." Below that, 2 small, distinct fingerprints. I stared at the words, hearing Vespera laugh bitterly. Back then, we didn't know that just after saying forever, we'd be separated completely. Shortly after, Vespera took me to visit the resting places of my parents and her mother. Then, we visited the person she called the reason for her mother's demise and for losing me, her father. Standing in the cold, lonely hospital room, Vespera held my hand. She smiled nonchalantly, leaned down to the figure, lying speechless due to a massive stroke, and spoke with casual cruelty. "Want to hear some good news?" she asked. Then she opened a paternity report and read the findings aloud. "Congratulations. You've been raising someone else's son for 29 years. You better stay alive. Wouldn't want to dirty my mom's path to reincarnation." She tossed the report onto the bed. Her eyes were rimmed with emotion, but she was smiling as she left, pulling me with her. As we passed the door, I glanced back. The person on the bed was left in shock and hopelessness, staring wide-eyed at the ceiling. They were reaping what they had sown. I heard about Serafina Thorne again when she woke up from her coma. Immediately, her breakup with Reese Kalin became a trending topic. Their once celebrated romance ended abruptly. No one cared about the real story behind the landslide. Not long after, Reese was seen dining and watching movies with a newly famous model. Their new relationship was confirmed with lightning speed. Childhood sweethearts rekindled. Fans cheered for the first love reunited narrative. Serafina's leg wasn't completely incapacitated. She could walk with crutches. During her time in the hospital, she called me countless times. I looked at the familiar number and eventually blocked it. She must have borrowed a nurse's phone because I accidentally answered once. As soon as I heard her voice say, "Elijah," I hung up. Before she got out of the hospital, I visited a respected professor nearby and passed by Serafina's room. She was arguing with Reese. Both were so agitated that I clearly heard him yell, "I didn't mean not to grab you. It was dangerous. What if I got hurt? Serafina, don't you love me? Why blame me now? You're just holding me back." After a moment of silence, I heard Serafina's low, despairing laugh, followed by a simple, broken, "Get out." I didn't understand whether her laugh was mocking her naive belief in mutual love or regretting her deep affection over the years. But it didn't concern me anymore. Still, she found me. Not long after she was discharged, she showed up at my apartment building. I wasn't surprised. I knew it would happen eventually. That night, holding a bouquet of lilies I'd bought, I got off the elevator to find her standing outside my door on crutches. She wore a black coat, her eyes red, her cheeks thin. She looked visibly changed, frail, almost like the girl in Blackwood Creek. When she saw me, her eyes welled up as she stepped closer. "Elijah." I stepped back, maintaining a physical and emotional distance. "Serafina, do we know each other well?" She suddenly grabbed my hand, her grip desperate. "Elijah, I'm your girlfriend, not Vespera. She deceived you. Reese and I only had a contract relationship. You've always loved me." I looked at her calmly, skeptically, freeing my hand slowly. "Really? Then how do you prove that I loved you?" She had no answer. Then she tried desperately to get me to a specialist. "Elijah, you just forgot about me. Once you remember, you'll know who you truly love. I found the best neurologist to help you get your memory back." When I refused the hospital, she recounted our past, escaping the remote mountains, living in a basement, sharing 8 packets of instant noodles, vowing to stay together forever. She remembered everything. Yet the person who had the least problem abandoning me was now the one who desperately wished for my memory to return. I bet she never thought she'd have to crawl back one day, looking at her reddened eyes and humble pleading. I felt nothing. That afternoon, after I refused to see her again, I received a letter, and it was one I had written 4 years ago. From the early days with Serafina, when writing letters to your future self was a popular trend. I had roped Serafina into writing one too, but she never did. Mine, I supposed, was the only tangible evidence we had ever dated. The rain-washed sky was full of evening glow, like the horizon was on fire. I took the letter into the bathroom, but didn't open it. I burned it. After that, she was swamped with health issues and work problems and didn't have time to bother me. We saw each other again in early fall. I was leaving the university library, walking along the sycamore-lined road. Yellowing leaves were gently falling, and I stopped involuntarily when I saw a pavilion not far away. It was near the spot of the accident. I heard footsteps crunching on the sycamore leaves behind me but didn't move. Then the familiar low voice came. It was here. You shielded me from that wooden box, and then you forgot me. Oddly, I remembered a trending topic from a few days back. The story of a famous artist getting back with Reese after her cheating scandal broke out. She had lied to her boyfriend about her couple marketing with Reese, but it was actually infidelity. Her ex exposed their affair with evidence. Amidst the viewers' rage, people summarized Reese's career highlights: dating the star, dating the top influencer. Then a fresh face emerged in the entertainment industry, a pure white jasmine. As for Serafina, her leg injury hampered her acting. Those loyal, forever fans eventually turned their gaze to newer faces who were younger, more beautiful, and healthier. It was only a matter of time before she was forgotten. After her last movie about reincarnation and changing fate, she announced she wouldn't act in any more TV shows or films. She only joined some variety shows occasionally, but at least she clinched the title of most romantic in the entertainment industry. All the shows credited her. Welcome to the stage, the epitome of deep affection, Serafina. No one would ever know what she really felt when she heard that title. Much like no one would ever know our story, I snapped back to reality, turned and looked at her, giving a relieved, genuine smile. Really? I don't remember. Then I walked away. After a few steps, the breeze carried her mumbled words to me. If I could go back to the year we met, I wouldn't let go of your hand. I paused briefly. A slight smile bent my lips, and I kept walking. She was wrong. If I could go back to that year, I'd choose not to meet her at all. At the end of the road, Vespera was waiting. I ran to her. She opened her arms for a hug, then whisked me away to a beautifully decorated private garden. Ever since learning about my family history, both Vespera and I consciously avoided talking about being together. This moment felt charged, like a confession was coming. But she gently pushed a cake toward me and said, Elijah, happy birthday. Holding the flowers, I felt a little dazed. This day turned out to be my actual birthday, which I had never known. Later, she placed 18 beautifully wrapped boxes in front of me. Her eyes were bright and dark as ink. These are your overdue 18-year gifts. My eyes stung with tears. I looked at her, smiling. Vespera, you don't have to be so nice to me. The sense of being cherished felt overwhelming. She cupped my face, looking steadily into my eyes. I signed up for the long haul. I'm going to be good to you for life. I glanced at her striking face, so close to mine, and gave her a kiss on the cheek. Instantly, she froze. Her cheeks blazed red, the color spreading down her neck. While she stood there stunned, I took out a watch from my coat pocket, a second, simple, elegant watch I had commissioned. I glanced at her empty wrist and told her, "Give me your hand." She obediently reached out, letting me carefully put the watch on her wrist. The air felt charged with something indefinable, almost like putting a ring on her finger. Just as I finished adjusting it, she wrapped her arms around my neck, stealing my breath with a quick, fervent kiss. A few minutes later, I opened the camera on my phone. From forgetting to breathe, my face was just as flushed as hers. I was about to check my lips for any damage when Vespera appeared in the frame. She grabbed my hand and the phone, pressing the shutter. Since age 8, our family photos had been lacking. From this moment, They picked up where they left off.